Oh, snap. I think it's another brief moment in time when we get to see the change of the tides. The shifted, twisted bit technology showcasing the little bits of safety, while the quick trips are surely randomly sparking the photons around me. Let the light flow from the heat, yo. When the photons ignite, highlighting, yo, then you know it's that time when we force a change in tides. A little bit lined with something in us. It's almost like we something else, autonomous, or maybe perhaps it's that missing piece you need in. Perhaps it's that simple message you searching. Perhaps it's just a different time framing us for the next adventure in the mainframe. Getting excited, so are the photons. Don't laminate so we can change the coupon. Let me raise the hash rate, submit the coupon fake, and reduce the rate while we mine our major bags. Crypto technology like cryptographic money will hash in your life into a set of QRs. It doesn't matter cause it's time for 3D changes perspectives. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It's me, 3D, and yeah, I think you saw what I said, and we are going to be looking into it. Basically, last weekend, or last episode, we went over various different, basically we just went over the EP87 that Lopp came out with, right? And then, so today I kind of want to sort of continue on with that conversation. One of the points that Lopp had, which Lopp is one of the writers behind EP37, that we covered last episode. He was talking about, like, there are three NIST, standards for quantum resistance. There are there's stuff already out there, we should use it. He was talking about there's AI that can help increase production, so we should use it. And he pointed out that anybody could write a bit. And basically, everybody's going under the consumption that we need some kind of upgrade for quantum protection. And, what would that upgrade look like, right? When I think about it, I'm going, well, we would need specialized machines. Because a lot of pure, true quantum randomness is only done with quantum devices, which would limit who could create wallets. And that, on its own, is the scary thing. And that's one of the reasons why quantum resistance could be a form of censorship on chain. Or, the better way to actually phrase it, censorship on chain can be hidden by adding quantum resistance. Like, there may be a way to do quantum resistance that doesn't even need an upgrade. But an upgrade to allow new signatures definitely can allow for censorship. And I'm going to explain this in a little bit. It's kind of confusing, but we will go through it. So, today we are going to start talking about the main center point of all of that conversation, quantum resistance with Bitcoin. And now, what if I told you that there is even a concept of being able to like to produce the NIST, or National Institute of Standards and Technologies, what they call quantum protection? It's mostly hypothetical when it comes with binary machines. And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier when I said we might need special machines to even do it. So today we are going to look at basically the NIST Post-Quantum Standards, see how possible these selected 3 signing methods are to do with common B2C nodes. So we're going to be looking at small form factor devices, 2 GB on average RAM, maybe 3 GB medium, because A, there are devices now that have it, and then B, it's just because it's either 2 or 4, and you cut it in half, and you sometimes get 3. And then 4 being the general max used on most common Bitcoin nodes. And we're also going to be looking at basically ARM core power CPU processors. No GPUs. Now, I am also at the same time considering using a standard computer. And I say standard computer, I don't actually mean what you would buy as a standard computer, but the standard computer we see on chain, or when I say standard computer we see on chain, I don't actually mean that, but more like the standard computer we see miners using as a node that isn't like a Raspberry Pi, an Orange Pi, or one of the various Pi devices. And that's like an i5 and i7 CPU. That's like, I don't know, like I know there's other equivalents, others, but that's a range of lifespan where we can say like the probably 12K i7s is late rear that we're looking through. And we're looking at like the last couple generations of i5s. And there are like other equivalents ones that we're also looking at for like power specs and stuff. But also RAM, we're looking at devices that have 16 gigabytes RAM and 8 gigabytes RAM on these devices. So still no GPU or anything. And I think that's kind of really important to get at, because when you really look at, when you talk to other people who do this, the large portion of people are just buying cheap devices to run as nodes, and they'll just get extra devices to just have more than one node. And then they'll use like a NAS to localize their blockchain data for all their nodes, and basically so they don't have to like actually store anything on the node. And so that's kind of the setup that we are going to be looking through. Now, because I said like quantum signing with binary computers is technically hypothetical, that's the real reason why we're looking at this. That the hypotheticalness is a scary thing, because if it is truly only hypothetical for true randomness quantum resistance, then upgrading the Bitcoin chain to just allow signing of additional amounts is fine. But if we update the chain to disallow the old signing amounts, there's a problem. So let's look into it and discover how, why, where that problem is. Okay. I'm sorry, I just now realized that wasn't on. I had a refresher. Okay. So I want to thank the partnerships and sponsorships. So first I want to thank the Organized for teaming up with Bitcoin Live Digital Broadcasting DB, because Bitcoin Live DB and the Organized is a powerhouse combo. I do see new heights for both organizations. Now, if you haven't checked out the Organized early morning broadcast for like stacks and other topics around Bitcoin and such, well, you're missing out, because they're taking off with every day, and you can find them on Twitter, pretty much anywhere you're watching this except for Odyssey. Love you, Odyssey. They don't go there that I don't know of. So, anyway, let's continue. Sponsorship. Yes, we actually have one of those. Alright. So I want to thank Shieldfolio for sponsoring today's episode from within a quantum bit, as well as the Bitcoin Live DB network. Now, if you haven't actually seen or tried Shieldfolio, they're like a little black book. They're made from stone paper, so they're fade resistant, tear resistant, even water resistant. You know the info and secrets you store in your Shieldfolio will last and survive basically whatever you throw at it. I personally have a Shieldfolio, and I use it for my website, info, contacts, crypto keys, among other things. Just pretty much anything I want off the computer and offline, I put in these little black books. And they're pocket sized and ready to be by your side, regardless of your adventure in real life or online. And that's the part I love the most. They really are like designed to be small, fit in your pocket, they go on the go, and they got other products there. So you got a giant QR screen on your screen, you see it, okay, well, guess what? Either use your screen reader later, come back afterwards, take your phone real fast, boop, boop, take a screenshot, just worry about it later. But you can always go on, check out what they got, see what they have, and at checkout use Bitcoin Live 20, get 20% off your purchase today for watching today's episode. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll in with the roll-ins before we continue rolling in. Thank you again, Showfolio, for sponsoring today's episode. Alright, now, as we go on, you're going to see that QR is still on your screen. So, throughout today's episode, any point in time, you can actually check it out later or whatever. It's always available for you. Alright, so, now the way we do today's episode inside this greater fourth dimension quantum machine, we have this special way of handling things, which, here we go. Alright, here we go. We have a special little QR. Alright, these QRs, they show you where we're at. So at any point in time during or after the show, during the replay or after the show, you can always check it out, find out, and just scan or use a smart reader or have your AI deduce what it means. So, that's not what we want to push. We want to push it again. Alright, so as we do and we go, you'll see this button. So this is the deorganized media I was talking about earlier. Like I said, they go live every morning, every evening. They got a lot of stuff going on. Super great team. Check them out. Today's free pre-search query. So before we get into the real topic, I always give you guys a free pre-search query. So if you like today's episode and think, you know, it's come back and check it. So basically, I have a little thing. Let me read it. Today's free pre-search query is possibility of quantum signing with binary machines. Like always, I did not use this query in today's episode research, but that doesn't mean we won't have some overlapping links. If anything about today's episode interests you, this free pre-search query should help you find, like, basically your way down this rabbit hole. Just, you know, like I said, scan the QR or use a screen reader. Jump down this when you get done after you hear today's episode. It's a great rabbit hole. Alright, okay. Now you know how everything's works. You know how the stuff works. You know what's going on. Alright? So, while I get this set up, let me catch you up while I get the screen set up for you. Alright, so basically, I kind of hinted at the possibility to, like, simply have quantum signing, right? Well, that quantum signing is mostly conceptual. Right? I mean, we cannot actually find a method for safe post-quantum processing for cryptographic keys in exchange. Then nodes may one day require the use of a quantum machine. That's what I mean by specialized machines. They would need a quantum device to be able to make wallet addresses. So that's just making the wallet addresses. Alright, so this act would be considered ultimate destruction of self-sovereignty on-chain for Bitcoin. A path Lopp has actually forced everyone's hands into the possibility of. I don't know why I said it like that. Okay, but yeah, Lopp has basically forced everyone's hands into this possibility of, like, basically not anyone can just make an address whenever they want. You might have to start reusing addresses and doing things we don't normally do on Bitcoin. So now that we have the fear-mongering, okay, let's now remind everybody else, there are NIST standards for post-quantum processing of cryptographic keys, and in reality, there are actually dozens of these, okay? Not just the 3 NIST selected ones, there's actually tons of them. So my point in the previous episode was that none of these, absolutely none of these, are fully tested, okay? They might have gone through peer reviews and things like that, but they have not actually been tested, okay? And that is why you shouldn't push to prevent types of spins on-chain. As a network policy, and it should only be a node policy that you want to prevent you from doing certain types of spins on-chain. So now we're going to review the standards, okay? That's good. There's going to be a first part and a second part, okay? And I always catch you guys up. We're going to have a little bit of history. Just a tiny bit of history. At least. Okay. So, this ain't nobody like that QR. But this is the federalregister.gov. You can see it on your screen. Okay. So, this is just basically announcing the fact that they had found 3 types of standards. And if you look on, like, the very top here, it actually tells you right here, this module lattice-based, okay, and it's a key encapsulation, right? And then it's a module lattice-based signature, and then a stateless hash-based signature. So the only thing that's like a little bit different than all the others is this encapsulation mechanism. All right, and it does have more information down here. Do I have? Yes, I do. It says, okay, so this notice announces the Secretary of Commerce's approval of the 3 Federal Information Processing Standards, or FIPS. FIPS 203. That's kind of weird how FIPS, okay, that's just standard. All right, module lattice-based key, blah, blah, blah. So then module lattice-based digital signature standards, and then a stateless hash-based standard. So these standards specify key establishment and digital signature schemes that are designed to resist future attacks by quantum computers, which threatens the security of current standards. The 3 algorithms specified in these standards are each derived from the different submissions. Okay? Alright. That's about all that really said, right? Hey, we got these things. We're looking at them. So here's like the official NIST project page for basically finding post-quantum cryptography. There's a lot here. Okay? And so if we go down here, they have like a bit of a process, right? That's kind of nice to look at. They call for proposals. Let me zoom in. So basically, they call for these proposals. They get submissions. They say, okay, these are the ones we're going to accept. Here's some criteria we have to set up, and then they start processing them. They have example files, right? Then they do some kind of submission criteria, evaluation of the criteria, or something like that. So they like check out, make sure all their stuff is set up right, and then they let people submit shit. So round 1, round 2, round 3, and round 4. It's 4 rounds of submissions. Round 3 has a seminar set up. Okay. So they got an official way of handling things, is what I'm saying. Okay? And it's kind of deep process. Alright, so we now are looking at, like, basically, but this was round 4. Yeah, round 4 submissions. So these were like the last set of submissions. And they have, I think they have it set up by algorithm name. So just just keep that in mind. So they got like this one called Bike, all these authors, whatever. Classic McEllie, so it's just a new version of this one thingy. HQC, Psych, and I think it's, okay, so selected for standardization, March 11, 2025. This is a merger of classics, so they give you extra information on some of these, right? And this one right here, the Psych team acknowledges that Psych and SIDA are insecure and should not be used. It was submitted, but I have notes that says there's a chance that the authors didn't actually know about the insecurity, or maybe they thought SIDA was going to be able to secure it or something. And then perhaps after submitting it and it being reviewed and stuff, people were like, hey, look, it's unsecure. Look, here, blah, 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 blah. And so you never really know if it was submitted unsecure. Like, you don't know if it was submitted and they were like, yeah, this isn't secure, bro. Here you go anyways. Or if they went, yeah, this is all great, bro. And then people came back and were like, no. So it's kind of hard to know. So, but it is possible you can submit insecure stuff. I mean, it's kind of technical, I'm sure, because like they have standard stuff, there's rules to it. But yeah. Okay, so these were the round 3 seminars. All right, so here we wanted to pull this up just to kind of point out that these started in 2020 and got done in 2021. So we're talking about something that actually happened some years ago, right? Some years ago. I think that's kind of that's kind of the important part, right? This isn't something that people were talking about last year or the year before. It's something they were talking about 5-6 years ago. So they got some time in the belt on this. They've thought about it. They've been able to do research and things. And so I do understand Lopp saying, oh no, it's time to force hands because there's 3 standards on the book for 5 years now, right? Well, maybe not on the book, but there are now 3 standards, and they've been going on for like 5 years. So now we're going to present to you the actual, this is the first one. Okay, this is the first of 3 standards being recognized by NIST. Kyber has already, to some degree, been used by AWS with a pre-quantum version. Now this is the post. Now there is a post-quantum version. So I first want to explain why and show why post-quantum cryptography is wanted, even if the machines we have are not really ready for this type of processing. Second, I will show you why post-quantum cryptography, is also a savior, but just, it's not actually a savior. It just moves the goal line some. And then I have covered this catch-22 before in the past, with cyber technology and tech and security issues. The statement is something like digital security isn't an end goal, but a constant move or push further away from the attack methods. Now the problem is with post-quantum may not be as big of a push as many think it is. To a lot of people, this feels to them like such a huge push forward and advancement. But I'm going to show you how that is and isn't a completely true statement. Okay, so to start, this Kyber is a hybrid algorithm. It can work with the pre-quantum and the post-quantum keys. So this is actually really cool. This is something you can use to go from old school to new school stuff. That's actually really important because there's a lot of pre-quantum stuff already out there. So this kind of shows the real reason AWS used it, in my view, at least. It was considered like a future-proof plan. Think about it. They first put this in, and then now, a handful of years later, they just update it or upgrade it, and boom, they're post and pre-quantum ready. Now, it was like a 2-year plan when they first started it, right? And this will be hard to show, but my point is twofolded. First, this is a setup that's like a setup and done type thing. You log in for a login while until the next field of cryptography hits NIST, right? And then this is very close or near polymorphic and nonlinear non-poly complex mapping data morphic structured API complexity hash graphs reduced into a hash state. That to me is going to be the future. Yes, nonlinear non-poly complex mapping data morphic structured API complexity hash graphs reduced into a hash state is the future of cryptography. That's just what I believe. Now, we will show you SPX and stuff later on. We've showed it before in the past. That is a type of exactly what I'm talking about. It's like a real hash form of superpositioning text in a cryptographic manner that creates smart data inside of it, right? So we look at the Kyber stuff. Kyber kind of changed from Kyber does a lot of what I just said, right? Kyber is this allows this a smart data capability type thing. Because that's just when you go into post-quantum cryptography, it's just kind of how it works. You need to secure the whole thing. There's a lot more you have to secure, is what I'm trying to get at. And on the page, it does say, I need to zoom in because you guys probably can't read that. They have these Kyber equivalences, and so they got Kyber 512, which is 128, Kyber 768, which is 192, and a Kyber 1024, which is a 256. So it does show you that just handling equivalent key sets requires 2 to 3 times more information in a post-quantum scenario. So, but okay, yeah. So, adding Kyber, it did change the attacks from two-dimensional, which is like direct cryptography implemented, or social attacks. So it's like just bypassing that, right? And then it turned it into like a multitude of types of attacks. That, like, there are now attacks that exist that never existed before Kyber got put in place. And I say that what I should really be saying is pre-quantum, before pre-quantum got put in place. Okay. So now personally, I am not a fan of Kyber because they really are going like for a low ball security in my view. This is why I'm leaving the whole like 192 up in your face. Okay. So don't get me wrong though. I'm not saying like my security procedures are best. I'm just saying that AES actually isn't the great standing protection everyone once thought it was. So it's been a long-term standing standard in NIST for a very long time. And it got broke. Now, it broke like in bottleneck scenarios for the longest time with CPUs. So CPU for the longest time was this bottleneck that caused it to break. So FPGAs are like standard hacker machines, right? Meaning they hold the most power possible at the lowest processing point. And again, that's still the bottleneck. The CPU is the lowest processing point. So now, before though, before 2015, I think RAM was the bottleneck. Before that, it was PCIe. And so we're just like moving where that bottleneck is, and now we're at a point where the bottleneck is that you can't get any lower than this. Like this is the last point of processing, right? Or the first point of processing. So we're just moving where that bottleneck prevents AES 256 attacks, which is kind of out there. It's kind of really far out there. But even knowing it will, it's still hard to work around the exchanging processing to get your injection in. I know this is kind of complicated, so I'm going a little slow here. But what I'm saying is the larger the AES, the more difficult it's just to get the injection in. Okay? The point of putting it in just moves, and it's more difficult, and that's it. So, the bigger the AES, right, the more points of injection the attackers are even given. And that's kind of creepy. Like, the bigger the AES, the more points there are that they can inject at. Again, still difficult. So, it's odd, but very common with the normal way you're set up your build tables in Hashgraph, right? This isn't uncommon. The bigger it is, the more points of injection there normally is. So, Kyber is like the best of both worlds. It's like, it does what AES does, right? And it inflates, so it's big, but doesn't handle it the same way AES technically does. That actually, like the way AES handles this problem, technically secures it. And what problem we're talking about? Making it difficult to inject. Okay? So, this always caused issues. And it was kind of like, well, we don't really know when, where, how, what, when. We don't know these really small details. We know everything about how that AES is coded, but we don't know how the AES is working because it's kind of, it's supposedly random. All right. So the question is, because we're adding more points, because they're bigger, is that actually a security flaw, or what? What is that really? So we don't really fully know, because attackers just kind of stopped looking because of this. Because of this problem that I'm talking about. Like, they're much larger, so there's more points that we can eject at, but we don't actually know what's technically going on in the background. We just know the math being used. We don't actually know what variables are being used at the time to be able to reverse engineer the actual whatever that we call encryption. So attackers started doing other things like certs, validators, DNS attacks, subsystems. They started using other key points. And if you ask me, that's really bad. When the attackers realize that your cryptography doesn't even matter, you have a bigger problem on your hands. Okay. So these are really the three forms of known attacks to AES. Okay? Meaning that these have worked on lower forms of AES, that AES 192 holds the same or similar cryptography handling. Okay? So basically the way AES works is it's like a small box, and then you build onto that box to make it bigger. So the original box is still there, and you're just adding shell layers over that to make that bigger. So that allows for related attacks, which are, they exploit stuff around the keys, but not the actual key itself. Or key recovery attacks, where you are basically going for the recovery method for when someone loses their key. Practically, AES remains secure. And it's because of the way it handles those injection points, the way it handles the data around those injection points, I should say. And that's really kind of important. Sorry, I was reading. Come on, guys. Alright. You know me. I don't just talk about the stuff. I show you the deets whenever I can. So here is a real paper on known ways to attack AES and the exploits around AES. Especially the ones that have actually happened. Okay? Let me zoom in real fast. Before we go any further, let me zoom in. Let me make this big. You guys want to read it. You guys are going to have it, want to read it, man. I get you. Alright. Okay. So, sure, AES 192 and 256 were never technically breached when this paper was released, right? Never formally breached, I should say, in that exact manner. Not because they are not vulnerable, but because we don't have the hardware yet to do it. That's it. We are going to read through some sections to give an understanding of just how insecure this really is. Now, I did have stuff highlighted, and it kind of sucks to see my highlighting went away. Let's see if I click this. Once back. No, it does not come. Sucks. Alright. I actually have a note that tells me where to go. Okay. So, the Advanced Encryption Standard, AES, is the most well-known and studied block cipher. Out of the three standard versions related with full-round attacks were proposed by AES-Script in 2009. So since 2009, there's been a proposed way of attacking full round, the entire thing. So on the 192 and 256-bit key variants, because those are like the more secure versions. These attacks were highly impractical. No meaning improvement over them was known until about 2022, where a better attack on the 192 version was published, and it increased the factor of 2, so it literally doubled the amount of times that it was possible, the amount of times it's possible. So it's basically faster to get there, and then the time complexity around getting there even was reduced. So also in 2022, there was another proposed new attack against the full version of 256 with reduced data and time complexity. So it took less to get you there, and that was the factor of 2, yeah. The reduced amount of data to get you there, and the time complexity. So basically, in the 22 version, they're saying, hey, look, we need 2 pieces of information in this much time, it's 2 to 52, to figure it out, to break it. And that's it, right? And then also in 2022, the 256 version had it also reduced both of those, but not to the same points. So at the cost of considering a bigger set of related keys, the authors were unable to apply their technique to the 192 version. And that's because they work slightly different. So AES is widely used as a brick. It's considered to be a hash function related to attacks by some applications and need to be seriously considered. In 2012, low data attacks on reduced variance were proposed, and they were arguing the importance of reducing the data to make attacks. So with this in mind, we studied the previous best attacks on 192 and applying different key recovery setups and previous extinguishers, we managed to actually considerably reduce the data complexity by a factor of 2.8.5. So now they don't even need 2 full sets of data. They just need partial amounts of information from 2 sets of data. It's insane. So this is the first attack improving the data needs from 2009 and can arguably be considered the best known attack on a full round 192. In addition, we use the key structure technique proposed for the first time to trade off with a bigger set of related keys on 192. And I think the keywords to look here is like amplified boomerang attack and this key recovery, and then also full round attack. That's things to look at. Oh, I actually gotta move this over. It's in my way. Alright, so basically AES is the standard and has been most popular for a very long time, since like 2000 when it was done in this competition, just like the one we were going to be looking at, where cyber came from and stuff. So, and you can see it's got sizes of 128, 192, 256, and it's got 10 rounds, 12 rounds, or 14 rounds. So basically the ideal is the more rounds you go through, the more secure it should be. Besides being included in many protocols and applications, it has often been used as building blocks for other constructors, such as hash functions. So since 2000, a large number of cryptanalysis, security analysis papers, trying to better understand AES, it basically just trying to reduce the security margin. Like they're trying to figure out how to make sure we don't get broken, right? And then at the same time, people are trying to figure out how to break it, how to get in there as quickly and easily as possible. So a surprising result repealed in the BK09, the full variants 192.6 versions with the highest rounds possible, respectively, were fully cryptanalyzed. So they were fully analyzed with their related key setting. The setting, the attacker can ask the encryption messages with a secret master key and a related key with a fixed difference. It's obviously much less strong than normal split key setting. Nevertheless, this setting has a certain importance when applied to AES, as in many cases, when using a hash function construction, the message takes the role of the key and the related key setting becomes much more easier to implement. So what they're saying is they're like changing a key they're changing a role to make a key better used. So in the paper, they propose a boomerang attack on the 12-round 892 with complexities that are very large, okay, into the memory. And the boomerang attack on the full 14-round 256, again, lower complexities. These attacks show that the larger version security margin were actually smaller than the 128-bit version. They remain the best known attacks until 2022, when a new boomerang attack on 192 reduced the time even further. And then, you know what? They have an easier way to look at this. Here's an easier way to look at this. So basically, that's what we're talking about. Is like people just figured out faster and faster ways to get to it, and needs less information, it needs less time, less memory complexity. And the big ones we're going to be looking at, I think it's this one right here. This amplified boomerang, the standard boomerang here in section 4. And then one I want to point out is this lower boomerang down here. It's like 2 to the 19. And there's a lot of these minus speed, or minus S and plus S. So that one right there, that's real possibility behind it. So I'm not going to like actually read all this like to you guys or anything. I'm going to go over it. So basically the boomerang and amplified boomerang is using data in a certain way, so when you get it back, you reverse it in a manner, so to speak, to see what data actually changed. And this is kind of what it looks like, where it goes in at one point and it finds its way out from another point. As you can see, some structures of the data go specifically one direction in value, while others specifically go different direction in value. And there is a way to subconnect into these, like we see there on the bottom rungs. You can go from one value direction to another value direction, and then in the middle you can kind of ring robin and go from any value, from a value direction to another value direction, or the same. And then at the top rings you can only go to the same. So you can go from a live active to a non-live active, and you can move around. So the ideal here is to move around within this technical space to get enough data to be able to run this as little points as possible, but they're actually doing it. Like they start off with as many points as possible to then find simpler routes. And that's like, so to speak. That's not like legit. Like had this mathematically what they're doing. Right? And then we can see AES has all these different things. So this is kind of how AES works. And so they're like, oh, we're gonna have the attack. We're gonna do blah 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 blah. Right? You can see the X's move. You see how they move? See how those? Okay. So basically, they have a space. And they're like, okay, we're gonna do this, and this is gonna apply information in this way. So we have known X's where it's like X X X X, right? And then it gets subroot or whatever, and then those X's move, but we know where they used to be. So then it gets completely changed and outputted. But we know where they used to be, and we know what they are, so we get the output, and we can reverse it with our thing, and we can go, okay, we now see where the X's are, and we know where they used to be. We kind of have an idea of how they changed. Okay, and this does this many rounds, so that way it's mixed up a bunch of times, and they're trying to figure out in what way are they moved and how during which rounds. So you figure out like what directions and what ways things are happening during per round, so you can set up something to be able to resist those rounds. Now this is the part, I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, I still can't believe this is the, I mean, it's simple. This is the reason. So this byte order, this is where they fucked up the first place, okay? Their byte order is going top down instead of left right. Why wouldn't you want to split your sequential data points? Like in my mind, I want to separate those. They want to first keep them bound. No. Keep it bound to non-associated data. That is how you get true randomness. But everyone has their own way of doing things, right? So when we look at this, we see that 128, everybody hops one direction. You get to so far, you all hop back. Do it again. All hop back. 192, basically the exact same thing. And then 256, there is an injection point in the middle. Okay? And this injection point in the middle is very important, but it's really hard to get to. While the injection points on the other ones are pretty much at the end of the round. So 256 you have in the middle of the round and at the end of the round. And you go up higher, you'll have quarters, then you go up higher, you have an eighths, and then so this injection point will just keep happening. Because you can see we can only fit so many of these into a field that before we start needing to further adjust it. And that does have to do with the complexity of the math gets so big it takes time to do the math. So you got to give it a time factor to wait so you don't lose data. Yeah, that was what we really wanted to show. So this key scheduling, is where the main attack really is. And it's because of this by order. It's locked in stone. Can't get rid of it. Alright, so now we understand where that issue really lies, and why. So at this point, the researchers are realizing they know enough information on the round, on like the first and last round. Like they actually get to a point where they no longer have to even attack the first and last round. They can just ignore it. So they no longer need to disrupt those rounds, and they can just assume based on handlings. So then they are only doing, like, they're trying to figure out the passes in between, before and after, and these little things, right? Now they have enough data to start assuming keys by random applying possible data between every round until eventually one of the ends comes out the same or to an expected output of return. And from that, in meaning they will one day be able to like insert hello world, and after an X number of passes be able to get back hello world or some predetermined output like hello coder. And that is just like an oversimplification of what's actually going on, what this research is. But in simplification is exactly what I'm talking about. Like they're literally changing stuff, putting it in, and seeing if it either comes back exactly the same or in a manner they expect. So really, quantum mechanics can take the initial two known points of data and single output. Like it can take this and just kind of determine all the possible relatable keys based on this information. And that sounds like, oh, that means you get the keys. Well, it's all the relatable keys. It might not actually be the keys. Most likely they are in there, but they might not be. And then you have to display them in a manner where you list, and using stuff like quantum APIs that will make it a little bit faster. So then like, you can feed it through a bot army to actually attempt to lower the time ratio for hitting this DDoS type attack on a key recovery of a master key, for literally having two random inputs and not actually a single thing that is actually important. You're just randomly picking two inputs and putting it in, and absolutely eventually being able to get an attack. You might have to do it multiple times, but you know, that's how it is. So this kind of just shows why people want to use post-quantum cryptography. We are not far from AES being a joke. Okay? Like the security standards before, AES stands for Advanced Encryption. What's up? Bitcoin Live? Oop, oop. Let's fucking go. But AES standard stands for Advanced Encryption Standards. Well, we're not far away from that being a joke. Okay? So pretty soon, it's going to be JES for Joke Encryption Standards. Okay. So I got this big long thing that I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the access to come to and read. Because I have a series of questions, I basically asked Grok. And I asked Grok these questions in a very specific manner, and I actually didn't get the output I was expecting. Dead serious. So I said, list me the AWS attacks, hacks, overtakes, drop downs by attackers, DDoS that happened, that involved, invoked, facilitated via Kyber security flaw, either implemented on an AWS server side or by the Kyber cryptography being used by the attackers before and after AWS started using Kyber cryptography. Also include the AES 192 attack, since Kyber cryptography was used at Amazon Web Services, AWS. And it says, nah, no such thing ever happened. That's what it says. And I'm like, whoa. Okay. It says it first introduced post-quantum TLS in 2020, and it finished the update in 2022. Right? So then in 2023 to 2024, and technically 2025, it went to like a larger. It went to a different kind of cryptography process, um, which is now the broader standard crypto Kyber. So then the main Kyber issues with Kyber/1, Kyber/2, discovered in like 2023 and 2024, were timing side channel vulnerabilities. And that was one of the things that actually did hit AWS. So I was like, well, this is weird. I could remember this happening at some point in time. And it took them over a year to figure out what the hell, how it happened or whatever. But it says here, no, it didn't happen, only happened in a research lab. And it was due to a secret dependent division of operations during the decapitalization encryption process. Okay. So AWS patched these. That's right. That's right. It was December 2023 when they got patched. Finished patching in 2024. No evidence of real world exploitation. I'm not gonna. We're gonna keep moving. Other academics. I mean, like we can find proof that it happened, right? So other academic side channel research, blah 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 blah, exists, but still considered lab based. Okay, so I'm just gonna ignore that too. That sounds kind of weird, and it's by MDPI. That's a paper. So, and it's a paper on using side channel attacks. It's actually a paper on saying the exact opposite of what they're saying. But that's probably why it says research only, because it's coming from an MDPI paper. So it says that there was a ransom group that it came out. It emerged this year, like literally this year, right? Actually, I think it just got more known this year. But it uses Kyber 1024 and some variants of encrypting victim data on Windows in ESXi. These attackers using Kyber for their own ransomware, not exploiting any flaw in AWS, but it does show that there's different versions of Kybers. What Grok is trying to say is there are other kinds of Kyber that could have been flawed, that isn't AWS. But actually, like, if I remember right, this Kyber 1024 KEM is actually better than the AWS one. If I remember right, I could be wrong. This might be the computers. So then they say no 192s. Then they kind of give you some more information on when they did all the Kyber and Copper adoption and all that. And when it comes down to it, like 2018 is the rule of thumb that we're going to go with for pre-quantum production, right? And then so I was like, well, how many known times or exploits are there possibly done with Kyber adoption using AES 192 vulnerabilities? Also look to consider key exchange attacks from server-side hits. And it says, like, none. Absolutely none, it says. And it basically gives me a reformation of everything it just said. The only notable Kyber-related issues with Kyber/1 and 2 is the timing side channel vulnerabilities. Again, it's telling me the same thing, right? Okay, I'm trying to figure out where I'm at. So then again, it talks about again. Then it says summary of known instances, 0. Okay, 0, 0, none. So I was like, how could an attacker use Amazon scripting to bypass key exchanges by convincing AWS server the intruder is just a different AWS server? Because that actually happened. Bypassing Kyber and AES protections completely. Explain if DNS exploits or AWS. And basically they were like, no, AWS has special ways of handling those problems because those problems has happened. And I like how it says, no, this ain't possible, blah, blah, blah. And then it tells me that it has happened in some manner. It doesn't actually explain it. So basically it's saying there is an internal communication structure with AWS to AWS communicate. Yeah, there is. AWS to AWS communication servers, even internal, rely on an IAM roles. And it relies on a role system, also a form of signature signing, and a type of credential. So it doesn't actually rely on the DNS or IP for verifications. And so this changes like why they can't do these certain things. And that was put in at a certain specific time. But iron roll's been around for a while. Like they've been using for a while. Rolls and cryptography has been around for a little bit too. So we're just gonna go further down, and I was like, okay, so what side channels? Blah 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 blah. Basically, I'm now like, hey, these side channel possibilities. How could that happen in Bitcoin? And it's saying basically, no, really not possible. But here they are: timing attacks during decapitalization. Power analysis, temple attacks, or correlated power analysis on pair point multiplication. Electromagnetic or cross-device attacks by just having two literally devices handling work at the same time. You have one just doing work and you have the other one listening and doing work, trying to repeat what it does so it can like basically write down what's going on. Quantum machine attacks. And now this is designed specifically for quantum resistance algorithms, okay, to actually break the math used in these post-quantum machine or post-quantum encryptions. It cannot be done without quantum machines. And that's kind of the important part about quantum anything. When you go down to, well, true randomness, blah, 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 quantum machines are the only ones that can do that. So then quantum API processing with AWS bracket, right? So there is a technical attack through AWS bracket with their quantum API processing. Anytime there's an API, it's an attack vector. And so Bracket provides cloud access to real quantum hardware for running quantum circuits and algorithms. Although it's possible in theory, it's not technically feasible today, and I'm going to show how that's not completely true anymore. But NIST devices, hundreds of noisy qubits, cannot run Shor's algorithm or any SCA enhancement against cyber at scale. But you know what can run Shor's algorithm? Standard CPUs, supercomputers that use CPUs, GPUs, FPGAs, and a whole bunch of other devices. So even in the future quantum APIs, it would target the math and not implement side channel attacks. Like they're saying the math is actually the easier point to attack here if you have a quantum machine. Alright, so then it goes into some of these breaches and stuff. Again, I gave you guys the QR. You guys can check that out later, right? And then basically we're like, hey, okay, what about adding Kyber to Bitcoin? What about Taproot scripting, And it says, imagine Bitcoin upgrades Kyber for future proofing, right? With Taproot, create a sneaky bypass or side channel. No, but it could help as a clever backup plan. So it says Taproot basics, Taproot hides complex spending rules. Just never lets you guys can't see it. Oh, it's good to see you too, Roosevelt. I'm glad to see you in the chat. I know you've been doing your stuff and handling the life. So I'm glad to see you back, Roosevelt. Hope everything is alright. So Taproot hides complex spending rules. Remember that thing, IAM rules, remember that? So Taproot can hide these rules inside of a Miracle tree with leaves. And most spins use a simple short signature or a key path that's fast and private. If needed, you can reveal a hidden script path to spend it instead, right? And there is a BIP out there to say we need to have spin to tap leaf. So that's a possible thing where you can actually spin into the tap leaf instead of spinning onto the chain. And that's a technical way to do offline cryptography handling. So like I could do all of the math for my stuff and then put it inside of a tap instead of a leaf basically and tap it into the Bitcoin. And when the person I'm talking to their node sees it or whatever and decrypts it, it gets the actual data. It will know like, okay, I need to do XYZ to get this data unfolded, and then it's able to just like add it into the node information, right? And then if all your nodes have this basic concept of how this works, then basically I can sign everything offline still like we normally do, right? And then I tap it onto the chain, but when I tap it onto the chain, it's not directly there. So like quantum machines and stuff wouldn't be able to run the algorithm to open it up, to be able to say, okay, this is blah, 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 because Shor's algorithm and certain types of systems are involved that it can't handle. So like for the longest time, adding a Shor secret and stuff was supposed to be like this major or it was a pre-quantum resistance thing, I thought. I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of people were thinking. But now, like that's actually a real thing, right? So like that's one of the things. But now they're saying, well, we got so much more qubits going on, they can bypass that in some way, right? So let's keep reading. Let's see what else it has to say, though. But that's just the ideal process thought that it's going through, right? But anyway, if it adopted Kyber, Kyber is a key encapsulation mechanism. It's great for key exchange, like in TLS. Bitcoin signatures we'd like pair with something like MLDSA, Lithium. Tapleaf could actually let you embed quantum leaf signatures conditions as a hidden script path. Example, like your Taproot address commits to either using a normal Shor on this hidden Pew key safe script, and then if quantum computers emerge, you reveal the leaf and spin safely via the Pew key path. Recent research shows Taproot structure can securely commit to these fallbacks without losing funds. Why Tapleaf scripting cannot create quantum resistance on PC? It's a key limitation. That's all you gotta know. Alright? Now, it does point out here that Tapleaf is like a fallback escape hatch. It is not a true, it's not a true solution for secure and all these other things. It's just a possible option. And so, just using Tapleaf theoretically isn't enough. Just using the simple signatures theoretically isn't enough. We need Tapleaf to have higher signature systems in order to truly resist quantum. So then I was like, alright, well, just list me all related exploits and attacks since 2018. Okay? I was just like, just give it to me. Here they are. 2018. Multiple organizations. Basically, the credentials behind the stuff were committed to a public GitHub and just simply exposed. Contractor abused root credentials and was able to expose records. So basically, someone had paid for a way in to AWS as a contractor, or they're getting paid. Like either they paid to get in or they got paid to get in to do work. Either way, they used their credential or the access to a root credential to just expose records. So there was an email compromise where AWS accounts, like we password reset, right? That's a social system, right? Employee just directly bypasses their system. Okay, that's more of a social attack. Compromised admin credentials, exposed 21 million users' data. That was neither of those. That was like someone left the company and something didn't get deleted, and that became a leaked credential and was then used. So then another fired employee deleted 23 servers. Oops. So that was an inside attack, right? Like they said here, it's insider. So a misconfigured WAF, and that's what we're going to see a lot of these. A lot of these is like misconfigured something, or something wasn't set up right. And the other major threat we're seeing is someone on the inside. It's like easier to get AWS to hire someone to then give them a credential that has root access or has the highest priority role to they just steal your shit. Like it's cheaper and easier to do that than to directly attack the post-quantum and the pre-quantum stuff. Because we're still in 2019, so we're still technically in the pre-quantum signatures of Kyber on AWS. And like you can already see, they've just completely got to a point where they're like, just get them to hire somebody. They'll just hire someone. They're stupid enough to hire someone. Just let them hire someone and they keep doing it. But then, like RDS snapshot was taken, that gave access to things in the future that was very, very, like, we still don't know the full implications of what that will allow. So basically, someone was able to get access to an API key, and then they were running computer and just like watching what the APIs were going through, pretending to be a higher AWS new in DNS root controller or something like that, and they were able to get basically what's called live API access. Something some people still don't believe exists. There's a lot of people that don't believe that you can set up a computer to be a simple reroute director for the main whatever using DNS exploitation, and then you just sit there and record the screen because you have the API just running on the screen, like on a terminal browser through Tmux or something, and you just have it where it's recording everything it sees instantly, applying it to a text file, and then later you just have a computer run through the text and figure out what everything is in there. And it can just like literally see everything going through that API live. I think the fastest setup I've ever seen was a 0.1 second, or no, 0.3 second reload time. Like it could reload the text in 0.3 seconds to be able to get everything that was being transferred through the API key. And you're like, well, no, the API does it. Well, you can get it to display everything inside there, including the entire hash field of that, of what you send in. So that's what we mean. All right. So then we go into 2020. Now we're at post, right? Misconfigured bucket. Ended up being a global write possible that basically created a JavaScript injection into the entire SDK. Okay, that made it completely vulnerable for a while. All of AWS. Then there was our hard-coded exposed credential on a third-party compromised database. Alright, so then, and remember they were saying they got the special internal stuff? You can hard code that in to expose them, because that's there. Misconfiguration. The S3 bucket again. 6.5 terabytes of flight and crew data were exposed. Hundreds of leaks because of this type of stuff. 2024 credentials stolen from GitLab. Okay, so here we're starting to actually see people are just now like bypassing the security, going directly for the credentials, and just getting at them, getting at them. So that's the real point here, is the show that they still get attacked. They actually get attacked more. It is possible to say they most likely get attacked more since the pre-quantum cryptography was set up than before pre-quantum cryptography was set up. Like, it was really easy to know where everybody was attacking at. It was just directly attacking the cryptography. You just had to secure that handling. You just had to take care of that transfer. Now, they don't even fuck with that much. Like, they still do. Like, there are still points in here where they are literally just somehow bypassing their security. And I say that meaning like they're going through the security kyber in some manner. Legitimately. They're not breaking it. They're figured out a way to just go right on in. Like, imagine you go up and you're walking down the road and there's a wall. And you're like, alright, I can't go down that. There's a giant wall. But you realize that if you just turn to the right and look to your left, there's a hole in the wall. And if you just shimmy, you just go ahead and strife, you can go through the hole. But if you look directly at it, the hole's gone. That's kind of what they're doing here. It's really that type of simplistic thought that they're really doing. And it shows. It shows. They're using the roles and credentials to abuse the system. They're saying, nah, I'm allowed to be here. Here's my role in the system, brah. And because now they have a cryptography set so strong that they have to validate on the possible, just like the way it's set up. They can't actually open it up and check it, and because it takes too long. It takes too much time. Can't verify it within milliseconds. But you can't verify other things in milliseconds based on the way it's set up. Once you know what that setup is that they're looking for, you can just put in random junk in between as long as it sets within a certain setup, or you build a key and you modify that key, that real key, to have these specific signature points for them to just say, okay, you have the correct role for this job. Let you in. And they let you in. You don't even need to break it. And you see, the further I go down, the worse it gets. Now, it does point out 99% of these causes, misconfigurations that expose the AWS side. See, IAM roles almost every time. Alright, so, and that's what they're saying. They're like, hey, there's no quantum-related incidents. They don't need to. You let them in anyways. They don't even need to fuck with that no more. Because you just let them in. So then, I asked, can you give me a simple output of the displays, the number of cyber attacks before 2020 to the number of cyber attacks after 2020? So now we're saying after post-quantum. There was 10 attacks before post-quantum upgrade, about 49 after. Now, in reality, some would say that number is anywhere between, instead of it being, like 10 to 49, it could be 10 to 90. Really could. But I went ahead and had some of those cleared out because I didn't want stuff like former rogue employee information and stuff like that in there. So we were able to drop it down to 49. And I think this is the most realistic number because even some of the ones that are in here, it shows they don't even need to fuck with the cryptography. The rules within the cryptography let them through. It's fucked up. It's ruined because there's a rule set within the cryptography, but at the same time, that rule set in the cryptography is how you can prevent speech. Okay. I think this is probably the largest list of actual incidents with AWS that involves customer security. If you want to look through this list sometime on your own, it's a little large. A little large. Okay. So now, what if I told you? Remember earlier I said there was no formal? Okay. So what if I told you there are full attacks on IES 192 that have happened, even if not formally? Notice how that means something different. Yes, researchers have exploited and broke 192. Here's the paper on it. We're going to brief some of the majors on here. So, in 2020, someone demonstrated that many differentials on this GLIMI, are in fact incompatible. I hate saying those words. It looks like incapable, but it's not. Incompatible. Similar incompatibilities also arise in related key differentials on AES, which are typically addressed to ad hoc manner by incorporating additional constraints into the researching models. So into the searching model, you add constraints, right? However, such ad hoc methods are insufficient to eliminate all incompatibilities and may still produce false positive related key differentials. So in 2022, a novel approach was introduced to that combines a constraint programming tool with triangulation algorithms to search for rebound attacks against AES-like hashing. What does that really mean? Someone invented a tool and using triangulation to actually find within a hash that already exists where the attack might actually be possible at. We could rebound information back and forth with it to find out what's going on. So in this paper, we extend and unify these techniques to develop a comprehensive related key differential search model. Our model not only identifies valid related key differentials in AES and similar ciphers, but also enables immediate verification of the existence of at least one key pair satisfying the differentials. Keep in mind, there was a group that figured out how to drop this down to less than a single key pair, using data from that. And now they're saying they have a single key pair. That's more data than we need. It's like guaranteed hit, right? So using this advanced automatic tool, we actually discover new related attacks on 192, 256, and Kasu BC. Kasu BC was considered very, very good. But also decoys BC. What? Okay. Based on these findings, we present full round, limited birthday, chosen key discriminations attacks on 192, 256, and Kasu BC. So, and then also the reduced round for decoys. So I'm going to stop talking about decoys for most of this. This kind of broke everything, right? Everything. This breaks pre-quantum resistance. Because I don't know if you noticed, the constraint programming automated tool is for AES-like hashings. That includes hashes that are similar, which we know Kyber is. Okay. And it does say that, like, yeah, this was actually used. This has successfully penetrated full round 128. Demonstrated in 3 different times. The attacks leverage statistical non-random properties, which also need to be... So basically, they were able to do this again with Kasu BC. However, it is important to emphasize these non-random properties pose a significant threat to the content of the block ciphers, because it's the way they're built, right? Remember, it's just a box, and you build wrappers on top of it to make it bigger, and they're like, well, the box is broken, so all the wrappers don't matter. That's really what they're saying. So a possible increment in the number of attacked rounds might happen in the framework of an open key distinguishers, even though we have not been able to improve the known attacks using this tweak input. Alright, so what's the point of that? Like, we could increase the number of attacks, but we just haven't. So they kind of use this really great framework to find the specific rebound points, to know exactly where to attack, so they're not attacking points that don't matter. They can keep the points that don't matter, that don't, they can just make it random. They really don't matter. And you can see we go further down here. On the decoys, it actually hits 2 very secure forms of decoy. So, what does it really mean? They broke it. They figured it out, and they figured out how to break it. And this is one of the craziest ones I've ever seen. So they're like, yeah, you can see that we just apply a nonlinear 8-bit substitution to everything. We just apply something to everything. And then we can see that it shifts everything in the cylindric way, and then it mixes everything in a linear way, and then it rounds your key to an external state. Boom, done, roasted. Figured it all out. 4 or 5 steps, done. That's 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so here's the other format, the STX construction. or stacks construction. And this is a lot of complexity, but it's actually quite simple to get in that, to just figure it all out, right? And the math's kind of nice. Now, I don't think there's anything else we really need to look at. I had stuff highlighted and it disappeared. And all right, so look, two-step search methodology. Step 1, search. Step 2, install. Done. That was simple. But that was the whole point. Even here's how you do the truncated search, right? Here's how you do the other part. The point of it is the workflow is more important than the steps here. Where we were always, like, traditionally they were always trying to build for protection on these steps, not the workflow. They never even thought about the workflow. The workflow was never even considered during the building of the encryption. It was always the steps. Well, the workflow is what failed them, because a simple workflow was able to bypass all the steps as quickly and simply as possible. All right. This is the actual GitHub for that paper. This is the actual thing they used to prove their point in that paper. It's the full source code, supposedly. I don't even know if this full source code is still here. It was at one time. So now that brings us to Ethereum. So, this is like back to Kyber, right? Specifically, this is one of the NIST Post-Quantum Cryptography recognized blah 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 things, right? Here we can see that there are like multiples of this system, right? So, this is like obviously the more advanced version of Kyber, and I wanted to like create that difference of old Kyber versus the Ethereum Kyber, right? So I do believe this setup, whatever, is an upgrade made to Kyber. Or Kyber had to get an upgrade in order to do the Ethereum. They needed the crystals upgrade. And I do know that crystals was directly inserted and used and created or whatever because of that new constraint time automated setup. Because of that, someone came up with this, like, fast. And I think that's kind of scary. It does show information here, right? It does kind of show you, hey, look, here's the stuff, here's the cycles. It kind of gives you more information right here. That's kind of nice. Then we got the paper. Here's the actual paper. So this just shows that basically this was caused. This was part of the call, whatever, by NIST. Crystal stands for cryptographic suit for algebraic lattices. The design for the scheme avoids use of all discrete Gaussian sampling and is the easier implementable in constraint time. If you've been paying attention, then you'll understand how this does not actually prevent anything with that constraint time tool. That automated constraint time tool can just break this shit. And I say it that way because I mean it that way. Sure, it's not exactly that way. You might have to have a really strong set of computers or a swarm, and you might have to put some real dedication and time and effort and energy. But if it's still working on constraint time, then guess what? Constraint time tool's still going to work. You're doing nothing. You're literally wasting your time. But not really. this kind of opens up the, all crystals does is just open up this option for higher forms of stuff inside constraint time. So discrete Gaussian sampling, it's kind of important. We'll get into it later. So this security level, the scheme actually is 2.5 times smaller than previously with other lattice space because it does not use Gaussian, while having exactly the same signature of size. In addition to the new design, which significantly improved the running time and the main component of the mini lattice space constructions, the number of theoretical transform, and our AV2X based implication results a speed up roughly over a factor of 2 over the previous algorithms that appear in the literature. There wasn't a whole lot I wanted to go through here. I just wanted to kind of point out the fact that from the very beginning, this is designed to work into the same constraint as the last one. So the same vulnerability that's involved with constraint time is still going to be there. So really what they're trying to do is trying to make it more difficult to do what that constraint time tool does, which is basically just figure out exactly what's going on. The problem is, because it's inside constraint time, we already know a large portion of what's going on. We just now have to reapply those things we saw earlier, random shit in every box, let it do its thing and run back in a symmetrical way, see where they realign, and then they wiggle everything around, and we know how they wiggle it, so we know how to set up the states to figure out which one was the original, to come back to say, okay, this from A to B is what we did. So the signature here is probably the bigger part. Okay? The signature scheme is called Ethereum, and that's where the magic really happens here. And so that's the major difference between the previous and this version. It's the signature. Crystals opens up the possibility for this larger or different type of signature scheme. And I shouldn't say larger, it's actually smaller. But this different type of signature scheme. It's really what it does. So here is the Ethereum software. It's where you can basically pick it up. Tells you how to do it and all that. Here is the GitHub for Ethereum. Kind of the same thing as what we just saw a second ago. Alright. This is Falcon. Fast, Farrier, lattice space, compact signatures, over in TRU. This is actually done or written by Perry Allen Foyer. And if you don't realize anything, one of the papers we talked about earlier and how you actually break AES talked and specifically mentioned the fact that Perry Allen Foyer was involved in the paper. He was involved in the research somehow. So of course he would make the next one up, right? Of course. Actually, a lot of these people in this paper right here were in one of the research papers, or mentioned in the research papers for breaking AES. And I'm pretty sure Perry Allen Foyer had something to do with AES too at one point. I don't remember. It's confusing. It was a long time ago, right? So basically, this allows you to do this on smaller machines. It says here this was all considered based off of an i5 at 2.3 gigahertz. I have notes. i5. This is a slightly elder i5 used on a standard setup, and they were using basically a small form factor machine. And I believe this is this has two forms of it. It's got the PQ Clean, we're going to go over both of them in a little bit, and PQM4. So PQM4 is for literally small form factor machines, while the PQ Clean is a little bit for regular machines. Let me give you the link to this again. So here is the main repo for what we're talking about. You see there's a lot of options here. It's not just the two, it's actually more than that. So here's the PQ clean. And you see this is like, it's going to be moved and whatever to PQ code package. You can easily be integrated into laboratories and stuff. Like basically this cleans your workspace, I think it's the best way to say that. But I believe this is for larger regular machines. Which this is now the PQ package for it, so that way you can go ahead and get access to all of it, which I believe that, yeah, you see there's Rust, and there's a little bit more here than what there was before. So awesome, right? There's more to work with. Now here's the other one. This is the one I am actually working with. PQM4. This is the one I'm working with. This is it works really well on like Raspberry Pis, Rock Pis, Orange Pis. So it's more of the small form factor or ARM machine design. You could probably run it on more like Linux, of course, Android and other things like that, like handheld Linux, basically. Probably could be ran on that. A lot of them run ARM or Snapdragon, right? So, there we go. Okay. This is Sphinx. This is the stateless version of post-quantum cryptography. And you see this is actually Sphinx Plus. So, whoa. Hold on a second. Okay, so Sphinx Plus isn't the original Sphinx. It's actually a little bit better. And we can see it's got like Gene Philman Osman, some other major heads of universities and stuff involved, and a lot of people working on this one too. And stateless hash is like my favorite form of cryptography, by the way. I mean, I knew how to do a lot with the SHA implications, but I started off stateless. And so this is just like showing you the software and stuff, how to get to it, how to access it. And then this is the GitHub for it. And Sphinx Plus is one of the ones I'm fucking with. It's one of the ones that I'm really, really messing with. Really like it. Oh. This is the paper on the first Sphinx setup. We're not going to go over it, because here's the paper for the new Sphinx setup. This is the better one. So, we introduced Sphinx, a stateless hash-based signature framework. Sphinx has significant advantages over the state of art in terms of speed, signature size, and security among the 9 remaining signature schemes in the second round of the NIST PQC standardization projects. One of our main contributors of this context in the few time signatures will be Force. Our second main contribution introduction will be tuplable hash functions and demonstration on how they can allow for unified security analysis of hash-based signature schemes, also known as roles. Well, you have roles, and you use schemes to build roles. So we give the security reduction for Sphinx using the abstraction and derived secure parameters in accordance to the resulting bound. Finally, we present the speed of it as well. And I had some stuff like, all of my highlights are gone. I gotta get a new highlighter system. Hash-based signature schemes are among the oldest designed to construct digital signatures. First introduced in 1979, 40 years later, basic constructions remain largely the same. With well understood security and minimal assumptions, they are often considered to be the most conservative option available, yet it took potentially infinite construction of a quantum computer for them to gain popularity and to be considered for real world applications. Today, hash-based signature schemes are the first post-quantum signature schemes and formally defined into RFCs, and also Sphinx. Now Sphinx Plus. The scheme presented in this work is among the 9 remaining signatures proposed in the second round of NIST. It's actually gone further than that now. It's gone further than that now. It's now in the top 3. The performance of the hash-based signatures are in both terms of speed, size, blah, blah, blah. So development over the past decade has seen steps towards the practicality of being able to handle this design with XMSS. Alright, so they do not have to keep track of all the signatures. This was addressed by the Sphinx in 2015. So Sphinx came out a long time ago, right? And it's based on theoretical works by the Miracles design, crucially relies on iterating over signature keys in order to prevent reuse. And that's the part I like. Prevent reuse. Contradictingly, the signature of the design flow is so large that roughly one can pick a signing key at random each time, and it is reasonably assumed that it has not been used before. This is essentially for many real-world use cases where continuously updating a stateful key pair is often impossible. So we introduce Sphinx Plus, a stateless hash, We introduce a concept for tweaking the hash functions, and we present speed of results. Alright, so we come down here and we see how you had to really using Merkle tree systems to kind of get where you want to go. And I think it creates more possibility for confusion, which does mean that it should be more secure. And I get, it's really a 4-point. Yeah, it's a 4-point to done. It's actually really good. So on a lot of things, it's 1 point a little smaller in processing, and it's a little bit less work, so to speak. But a lot of times you need dedicated chips for this type of stuff, right? You need dedicated stuff. And so in here they're using hash families to further down the processes. And once you have a picked one, you can then go through and you can create better ways of processing everything, so you can ensure you get one that hasn't been used before. Here they're using hypertree systems to go ahead and multiplex the possibility of what they're doing, so they can then mix and match and have a much stronger output. So it really does things differently, and that's really what they're getting at. This one is completely different than the other two. Alright, completely different. Now, keep in mind, Falcon doesn't really explain itself very much. I mean, it doesn't really need to. It's kind of basic. But in that basicity or whatever, it's good. So, okay. So, one of the papers we saw specifically does not use Gaussian sampling. Why? You notice constraint time has an asterisk. This came out in 2018. This is a paper going over really the problems that come from every application of lattice cryptography. It can be both time-consuming and challenging to implement. Most previous work has focused on optimization and application of integer Gaussian sampling in the context of specific applications with a fixed set of parameters. Represent new algorithms for discrete Gaussian sampling that are both generic for application independent and efficient and more easily to implement in constraint time. So now they're talking about there's a form of Gaussian sampling that can be worked within constraint time. And we have specifically seen systems Kyber refusing to use Gaussian sampling within constraint time. But at the time that came out, for over 2 years, actually by that time that came out, for almost 4 years, there has been Gaussian sampling within constraint time. Okay, so Gaussian sampling is kind of this magic sauce that allows you to act as if you have a quantum machine, but you don't have a quantum machine. It's kind of the secret sauce in quantum protection on binary machines. So that's one of the reasons why I like Sphinx Plus. Sphinx Plus allows for the processing setup to where you could have a miner type machine in the network that is allowed to create that sample for nodes to then be able to call from. Imagine having a thing where you could go, hey, look, I need to pull in a new sample to make sure I get more randomness. So I'm going to pay for a sample. And you just pay on chain for a quick sample to be sent to you. You know, gets a sample. Now you can create really random wallet addresses that are quantum resistant, technically, on your machine, your hardware, right? And you could be running your own Gaussian sample miner, right? You could be running your own Gaussian miner, and then just access it yourself, right? You can just use like a certain type of service like Slipstream or something and talk to it and get information from it and just get it for free. And then other people could be accessing yours by paying. So like it works both ways, right? And so that's one of the ways you could open up the decentralization for needing specific quantum machines. So basically imagine I have a quantum device and it's talking to a miner, and that miner is specifically just outputting or putting on chain Gaussian samples. That's a free way to put it on chain that, you know, people could tip or whatever to say, hey, thanks for putting this on chain, thanks for announcing this. Or even if you're not even trying to put it on chain, just trying to announce it to the network over and over and over and over so nodes could see new samples coming out in real time. Like that could be possible. And you could even possibly get these miners to work in a hive mind scenario where no one sets theirs up together. Everyone sets theirs up individually, separately, but then they slowly sync together with each other. So that way they all produce the same Gaussian sample. But like, no one machine is doing all the work. Then you have a decentralized Gaussian sample made from all the Gaussian miners with a quantum device. So now we have multiple quantum devices truly randomizing the output. And so now there's this possibility for insane decentralization that we've never even thought about before, where we could decentralize the sample that we use to create the wallet addresses that before would be a limitation. So this whole thing I'm saying, this new form of cryptography has a baked-in rule set that can break everything. People are currently using it to just bypass the security 100%. But in terms of quantum protection, it's pretty damn good. And now we have a form of Gaussian sampling within constraint time, which means we can have Gaussian mining live on a network in a synced manner for decentralized sampling in a, like, it could be a global sense, a global network. So I'm not really going to go through all of this. I just wanted to point out that before the newest form of Kyber came out, for about 4 years, there is a way to handle Gaussian sampling within constraint time, and the math for Gaussian sampling is kind of weird. It's shit. I hate it. It's guesswork more than anything, but there's a lot of math. Okay. So, I was like, well, we need a checklist. So I got this checklist. Now, I do have a screenshot of the checklist. Let me get that screenshot. So, you can see the checklist here was slightly different, right? You need resistant algorithms. You need key management protocols. You need some form or way to communicate. You need agility within the cryptography. You need regular security assessments. You need to be regularly looking at it. You need to have compliance with standards. I don't really believe in that shit. User education and training, incident response plan, and hardware security measures and continuous and updates, right? So basically, you can ignore 6 and 8. They're kind of pointless. Everything else is really important. Blah blah blah. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna go on. So this right here is basically just a repo of mine. I'm hoping for it to grow. That is showing some quantum resistance and stuff like that. And we're now gonna go over those. So this this is an experimental setup that should allow for quantum resistant transactions. They have to be mined directly by you. So you have to use you have to use specific software to directly communicate to a miner for this method. There is no, but yeah, Slipstream. Slipstream is the only way that we know you can do this with. Can this work? Yes, this works. This is pinning a transaction across multiple transactions to then be configured, controlled, verified, or configured, combined, verified, and submitted all, like after the last transaction, after the batch transaction. And this does it in a non-batch way. It does show here that it is going to cost a lot of money to do this. It's going to cost you money to do this, okay? And if, like, you fuck up any little bit, it fucks up everything, right? And this could allow you to set up like a quantum vault or a quantum, basically a space in the chain that is not directly quantum resistant, but because of the way it's broken up, it has quantum resistance. But this requires also two really important things. You have to have really good hardware to mine against. Right? You got to be mining with something really, really good. And for the most part, this requires some amount of quantum machine, or access to the quantum API, or again, having a secondary, really strong machine just do the workload for you that takes a little bit longer to do that way. It's all here. Okay? And this should work on chain. Like, this is not needing to run any kind of upgrade to the chain. Okay? This should work right now. Already. But if you're not doing a transaction that's like it says here, you need to be transacting like about $100 or more. At least 0.01 Bitcoin to just perform this. That's not even that's if you want a wallet that has nothing in it. You want a wallet with like one sat. It costs a lot of money to do this. This is extremely expensive. This isn't practical. I can give you that keyword link again. Okay. Here is another theoretical quantum resistant signature system without the need of any quantum machines. This method could potentially use Falcon or Sphinx Plus. Even potentially using Ethereum, but I'm not too sure on that part. To actually sign with quantum resistance without a network upgrade. Now, I'm aware that this version we are displaying doesn't use any of that. But you could easily use, like, I would say Sphinx Plus in place in the OP return to create an actual signature. But there is a way to Falcon to base 58 to where you could say that you have this quantum resistant signature and it's a base 58, and inside that base 58 is padded Falcon. Padded Falcon, it's definitely a way, right? Now this one, if I remember right, when testing, yeah, it's only a little bit less money, but it's still quite a bit of 0.001 Bitcoin. So one additional decimal point backwards is how much less money you need. So it's still quite expensive to do this. This one is the more reasonable method. And there's two ways of doing this. You can see there's not just one way of doing it. There's two ways of doing this. And you have to build your workflow to be quantum secure. And that's the most important part I wanted to get here. Is the first step in quantum resistance is quantum resistant workflow. We found out the hard way through like Kyber upgrades and all this other stuff, we found out the hard way that basically the first thing that is breakable in a quantum system is the workflow. That's the first thing that breaks. They break the workflow before they break the encryption because it's more practical to just break the workflow. And that's the sad part, is it shouldn't be like that, okay? It shouldn't ever be like that. It should be like basically the workflow should be secure first. And that's what I wanted to get at. Secure your workflow before anything else. You know, be smart about this. Okay. So, can binary really fight this? Theoretically. So true quantum protection without actual quantum machines is only theoretical. AWS, if anything, has shown that theoretical additional protection can actually be the difference between almost never getting hit with attacks to getting about 4 times more attacks with about half as many years. And in the case it was NIST, AWS had somewhere between 8 to 10 attacks or breaches before 2018, but over 40 after 2018. And then the reality was 2020, right? So setting up Kyber and pre-quantum protections actually increased the number of attacks. It dramatically increased the number of attacks. They never went down. They just changed, like, you could say the cryptography attacks are down, but attacks in general are extremely high because of it. And I say because of it because I really mean it. Because attackers realize, oh, it's just an easier way to attack. We don't fuck with that. So the stark aspect that, yes, there are companies using post-quantum protections with their cybersecurity and key handling. But attackers just went a different route to attack those systems. And in some cases, attacking the roles to bypass, to just not even bypass, to just get right on it. So it's like the deterrent is so good, it pushed to create new forms of attacks. But we do see one of the major advancements in this specific PQC actually revolves around the roles within the key systems. So more control, basically, by unseeable entities, having these roles built into the encryption. So that is control that could even disrupt or prevent applications from performing the actions wanting to be performed. And I believe, I asked if binary could really fight this battle. And so far, maybe, perhaps, possibly. We really don't know. Something that will continue, we will continue to explore this in the next episode of 3D Changed Perspectives. Alright. We went through it, we got through it, we did it. Thank you everybody for showing up. I hope you guys come in for the next one because we have quite a few stuff to show you on the next one and a whole lot less talking.
Yo, did you think you know? Did you think you hold? Did you think something new? That's the goal, to see from a new degree and get the change your mind needs to find something new. Life suddenly is easy for many, but when a wall appears, sometimes up is all you see. So let 3D guide to the side, yo, where there's a door though. Just be careful on your way out, for the first step is a do-see-do. A little bit Linus with something different, it's almost like he's something else. And regardless, maybe, perhaps it was that missing piece you was needing. Maybe it was that simple message you was searching. Definitely it's just in different time for defraying our mental mind state, separating us from our own mental mind tank. Boom goes the blast of thought. Boom goes the last spark with part. Boom goes the mental mind tank. Don't your perspective hit on the way out. Don't let your directive stop you when you doubt. Don't let the dire detection stop you from being getting excited. So the photons are delighted. Don't don't hesitate so we can line up the hash rate. Let me surmise the time, submit the rate, and reduce the fakes while we mine our major bags. Crypto technology like cryptographic money while hashing your life into a set of QRs. It doesn't matter, cause this was 3D changes perspectives. Thank you for joining the show. Please return next time for a new roll of perspective. Thank you for joining the show. Please return next time for a brand new perspective. Of perspective. Thank you for joining the show. Please return next time for a brand new perspective.